Welcome back, everyone, to the International Training Institute of Health Masterclass. And what we're going to be talking about here today is spinal conditions. And understand something. Your spine is so important, okay? You got to understand something. It's like that telephone pole that holds up all the wires, right, to get the communication. And that's what it does. It's the communication system to the brain. Mm-hmm. And understand something. Your spinal fluid, okay, has more light in it. So we know that it has more information in it than anything else in the human body. And we also know that, you can have a joint out of place. That's correct. But the biggest problem with the spine is actually scar tissue. That's right. It's actually scar tissue, and it's actually the discs in between each vertebrae. What happens is they become dehydrated. And when they do, you start to lose them a little bit. And everybody says, wow, I have a slipped disc because it gets inflamed. Or they say that I'm going to need to have spinal fusion. And I'm telling you here today that we have people coming to us that are already booked for surgery. And we go in and work in between the vertebrae. We restore the fluid back into those discs. And what happens is they don't need to go to surgery. Yeah. So understand something. You know what? The spine is not as fragile as you think. And the reality is it's still like every other part of the body. It's a crystallization, scar tissue formation, and calcification problem. And we're going to prove that right now. And we're going to prove that even if somebody has scoliosis or if their spine's out of place, we can go in and do Wolfe deep tissue. And all the vertebrae, even if they're not aligned, they will align just by going in and working on the tissue, because the tissue is the issue. Because when you go and you get your spine put back into place, like have an adjustment, just remember something. If the ligaments, the tendons, the muscles around the area are still in spasm, or they're got crystallization or calcification, or they have scar tissue, so they've shrunken, so you're going to try to push that joint back into place. But as soon as the person gets fight-flight syndrome, where they get contractual, or, it'll just bounce. It'll come right back out of place. The vertebrae will come right back out of place. That's why people are continually going back for treatments to realign their spine. Whereas if you got rid of the issue in the scar tissue,
because it's the scar tissue pulling it out in the
it's the first place. And we prove that everywhere throughout the body, whether it's a rib out of place, whether it's a vertebrae out of place, it doesn't matter.
It's just scar tissue pulling on the joint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the problem is not in the bone. Yeah. It is in the joint, but it's only because of the buildup of scar tissue crystallization.
The buildup in the joint, leaching out to the tissue, muscle tissue, and then pulling on the muscle tissue, which pulls on the joint, which slips it out.
And then this side of the spine, you might have the spasm, and this side you don't. So they're playing tug of war. Mm-hmm. So what we need to do is we need to create balance within both tissues, tissues on both sides of the spine, and running even along the spine.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only real problem you're going to have with your bones or your spine is displacement of calcium, and your bones becoming not.
And that's the little fractures you get. Mm-hmm. That's even the breaks you get. So yes.
Yeah. And we've talked about arthritis a lot already within our other treatments, from the hip to the knee to the ankle, and now we're coming to the spine. So we will talk about arthritis, osteoarthritis, and rheumatoid arthritis, and how it can affect the spine.
But what we're going to do is we're going to talk about it in a way that it's really simple, guys. Everything starts, we start off with a pimple, we go to a boil. A boil could actually go to a tumor. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that's right. Everything just gets worse as it goes, So you have to understand, arthritis means inflammation of the joint. And we already know that when you have inflammation of the joint, you're going to get the crystallization. You're going to pull on the calcium, right? That's what it is. It's inflammation. You're going to pull on the calcium. So you're going to get osteoarthritis, because now your bones are getting more porous because the calcium is being used to put out the inflammation, because you're not on the right program, okay? Yeah. Or you've got so much scar tissue in there, it's blocking the circulation, so it's causing cellular constipation, which creates the inflammation, okay? Yeah. And then what happens here is, because of the osteoporosis, the calcium is being displaced. Now we've got the tissue that's already inflamed. It's becoming cemented, which means now it's a real physical block. And then you get stagnation. When you get stagnation, that changes the pH in the area, and that means that you can get viral, bacterial, fungal, and now we can go into rheumatoid if you'd like. So now we got rheumatoid arthritis because we didn't get the right treatment when we just had inflammation in a joint, and that's what arthritis means, is joint inflammation. That's all it is. It's not a disease. And guess what? Either are the rest. So the rest of them are not diseases. They're not different than the first. They're just worse than the first one was because it was mistreated, not treated properly.
And your body just continually wants to give you, hey, you didn't listen to that warning sign? Okay, I'm just going to give you a stronger one.
It's going to get worse.
Let's see if you'll listen to this one.
Yeah, don't pay your bills and find out what happens to your Visa card. It gets cut up.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. And for arthritis, osteoarthritis, and rheumatoid arthritis, the SAC calcium is absolutely amazing.
Essential. No, it's
not amazing. It's essential.
It's essential because it's the only ion calcium in the world, and it's the only calcium that they've ever seen that will actually pull calcium out of the areas it shouldn't be, where it was displaced, and bring it back into the bones to create that 35-year-old spine.
Yeah, and like we're saying, these are all inflammation problems. So we need to bring down that inflammation by having an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. So eating an anti-inflammatory diet and drinking a lot of structured water. And of course, humic acid is a really, really amazing way to bring down inflammation in your joints as well.
But take a look at the Perfect Day in our library, the Perfect Day guide. You can watch the video or just listen to the audio or read the book.
Yeah.
And also, you know, you want to take a look at also what's called scar tissue to a tumor. And I know we're not talking about tumors on the spine, but the reality is that wherever there's muscle and tissue and wherever there's inflammation, there's fibrin buildup, which is the scar tissue, and then that's when you really start getting the imbalance issues, okay? And the physical blocks that bring down the energy, bring down the flow.
Yeah.
So the healing's not there.
Yeah. So let's talk about osteoporosis.
Let's do it.
That's the next step.
Okay. So osteoporosis, like we said, was SAC calcium.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? And it is actually the next step. Okay, so we're talking about osteoporosis. You just don't have the inflammation. Okay? So it's not inflamed. You just have the calcium being pulled out.
So a lot of acidity going on in that
Yes.
system.
Yeah, and with osteoporosis, you're losing bone calcium, so you're crumbling. All right? And the reality is you've got to still turn around and get rid of those physical blocks, which is the scar tissue that's wrapped around the spine, right? Because there's got to be flow. And I'm going to tell you, the more scar tissue you have, the more you're going to have disc problems, because the disc problems are going to become dehydrated. And instead of being about a quarter inch, a little bit more than a quarter inch thick, they're going to go down to 1/16 of an inch, and they're going to tell you that your discs are gone and they got to fuse you. And I'm telling you, that is not right. I won't say that that's a lie, but I'll say it's not the truth. And I'll tell you that if you make the changes that we ask you, and then you get the Wolfe deep tissue, and you start doing like pelvic expansion and really start doing the proper cleansing, we're going to actually renew your spine. We're going to help you, show you how to renew that spine, okay? So whether it's osteoporosis or whatever it is, arthritis, one condition is just worse than the other, as we said.
Yeah. And next on the list, we have some degenerative disc diseases and herniated discs. So when normal changes that take place in the discs of your spine cause pain, spinal discs are like shock absorbers between the vertebrae or bones of your spine. They help your back stay flexible so you can bend and twist as you get older, and they can show signs of wear and tear. So disc herniation is most often the result of a gradual aging-related wear and tear called disc degeneration. As you age, your spinal discs lose some of their water content. That makes them less flexible and more prone to tearing or rupturing with every minor strain or twist.
So understand, the more inflammation you have, a fire will just evaporate any water. So you've got a fire in there, inflammation around the pad or in the pad, in the disc, and what it's doing is it's dehydrating and it's making it into beef jerky. I just told you it goes from a quarter inch down to 1/16 of an inch. And guess what? You still have your tissue there. And if you get in there and you open up those fibers, allow the blood to flow, the fluid will come back in and you will restore. Your body's a healing mechanism. And as far as, what did we say?
Herniated discs.
Herniated discs. Okay, so
that could also be like bulging discs.
That's a bulging disc.
People call it slip discs. There can be so many different.
And I keep saying to somebody when they say they have a slip disc, where'd it go? Did it go down your pants? Listen to me. There's no such thing as a slip disc. It doesn't slip out. What it does, it's bulging out. And the reason why bulging out is because it's so inflamed. All right, when it inflames, that's when you get that inflammation is going to bulge out. All we got to do is get the inflammation down. The swelling will come down, and then we've got to go in there and take those fibers apart, because everything, let's say it was this thick, it's only this thick now. And what's happening is the fibers used to have flow through them, energy flow, blood flow, lymph flow, and now they're not just bound together, they're actually bound up like this, and there's your bulge. Okay, so you're actually knotted up your disc in between your vertebrae. And you can untie all that and renew all that. Or, because I'll tell you something, I have, it's on my website, it's a testimonial from a lady, and they told her that she was going to have to get surgery, and they wanted to put in a 6-inch rod into her spine. And the reality was, and she went to the best surgeon in New York. And I have it even taped. And so we could even play the tape. I do it at classes for trainings. And he's talking about how it's irreversible. You know, she won't get her feeling back. And anyway, so she came to see us. And the first treatment we did, okay, she had that pain relief in her back already. Because what happened is the discs, they got dehydrated and they thinned out. So everything was compressed on each other. We went in there and, you know, we had to pull it apart. So there was a little bit of bruising, right? But then she got her blood flow back in. She got her life back in. And it didn't take more than probably about, after the treatment, it took about 5 days for the tenderness to leave. And she never had it again. So, but she does need to keep up with the therapy because she doesn't want to keep up with the perfect day.
Yeah.
All right.
And lots of ways that they treat degenerative disc diseases and herniated discs in the medical field are with physical therapy, medications, losing weight, surgery, injections, steroids or anesthetics, and they also will give you pain medication.
So which one of those do you want? Would you rather come to us and get some Wolfe deep tissue and then maybe do some pelvic expansion and then learn how to do that at home, learn how to do the perfect day diet and never get into that trouble again? Or just keep this thing going and
keep putting Band-Aids.
Let it progress.
So that's your deal.
Yeah. Next up, we have spinal stenosis. Spinal stenosis is a condition in which the spinal column narrows and starts compressing the spinal cord. This process is typically gradual. If the narrowing is minimal, no symptoms will occur. Too much narrowing can compress the nerves and cause problems.
So let's just say what it is.
Yeah.
What is it?
Dehydration in the first place because they're getting...
And it's scar tissue. And
of course.
it's also crystallization and calcification. And now they say we can't even see the nerve. And again, we already talked about that. The nerve has been cocooned in this scar tissue and calcium. And this same woman was told that she had stenosis. And guess what? She had pain going all the way down her leg. And she had a numbness in her feet, okay, in her right foot, okay? That's what she was feeling. And he said, well, that probably isn't going to come back. Well, I want to tell you something. We had that come back after the first treatment, because as soon as you as soon as you pull apart the scar tissue, you're releasing any crystallization in the calcium with the blood flow, because you're bringing up the circulation and the temperature. So that came back instantaneously. And I'm telling you, one person, it's not because we had one, it's just the latest one. Understand that we've done hundreds of people like this. Okay, and even with scoliosis, right?
Yeah, we'll be getting into that soon.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to be doing a training. I'm going down to Anaheim to do a training on how to reverse scoliosis. All right?
All right.
Okay.
So the medical system says that the most common cause of spinal stenosis is aging. Degenerative processes occur throughout your body as it ages.
So that's the deal. Everybody, as you age, you'll get more stenosis. Okay. All right. I don't think so. All right.
Tissues in your spine may start to thicken, and that's because of the scar
true.
tissue.
That's true.
And bones may get bigger, compressing the nerves. Conditions like osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis may also contribute to spinal stenosis.
Well, of course it could, because now you've got more inflammation, more infection, because you got mistreated instead of treated properly.
Yep.
The inflammation that they cause can put pressure on your spinal cord. Other reasons can be problems at birth or scoliosis. And how they treat it is with pharmaceutical treatments to relieve your pain, cortisone injections to reduce swelling, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, and physical therapy. And that would be about it. And surgery.
And most physical therapy is not that great, is it? We all know that. Okay?
Yeah.
So understand the action that you take, and the more action you take will be the day that you actually reverse these conditions.
Yeah. So next up we have spinal fusion. So you already touched on this a little bit.
We touched on it. So, you know, the reality is that's their way. I mean, you go to a surgeon, he wants to do surgery, right? So you can't blame the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what he was changed. That's what
he was trained to do.
Yeah.
So, but the reality is that, you know what? So what's the worst case scenario if you came to us and it didn't work? Well, don't pay us. That's one thing. The other thing is that now you can go have your surgery. But the reality is I guarantee you that if you come to us,
you're going to get some results in a positive direction.
Yeah, and you may have a total turnaround. And when we say you may, that's because, you know what? We have to leave room for error and don't be so cocky. We're not trying to be cocky here. But you know what? We have not had one person that went for surgery like we.
Nobody's perfect, so we say.
In the last 5 years,
I've never had anybody.
We haven't had anybody, and it's not like our doors aren't open and we're not busy, because we are.
Yeah.
So that's it right there. You will have to just take the leap of faith that your body does heal. Okay.
And trust yourself.
Yeah.
Trust yourself.
And trust that your body is going to do this for you. You have to have that knowing and understanding that God gave you everything that you need already.
I know that you've been living with pain. If you have a spinal problem, it can be happen for years and years, and you've been putting up with it. And you know, well, you know what? If I could have been healed, I'd be healed already. Really? Is that true? Okay. I don't think that's true. And because there's not many people out there that are actually getting healed. Are they numbing out their pain? Yes. Are they getting treatments and they're good till the next treatment? Yes. We don't want you to keep coming back for treatments. We want you to get trained. We will treat you to train you to never have to deal with this again. Okay.
Next, we have stress fractures. So stress fractures are tiny hairline breaks in the bone. Stress fractures result from high impact force, back hyperextension, or repetitive stress.
Well, that's not true, actually, because you can do repetitive stressful things, but if you do the right type of stretching and have the right type of diet,
you would never have the stress fractures.
That you wouldn't have them. And stress fractures are actually caused from inflammation in the body, where there's been microparticles of calcium being pulled from the bones, and you get weak links, and and that's why you get cracks. You get cracks in your bones, very fine cracks, and it's because your bones can no longer handle the normal or that weight that you have.
Or
but
whatever's
listen,
going on.
But bones love weight.
Yeah.
The more, when you put weight on bones, you know, I'm not talking about weighing 300 pounds here, because let's not go overboard. But the reality is your bones need weight, and they get healthier with weight.
Yeah.
And that's why weight-bearing exercises help
Is
bones.
good. Yeah, it makes the
So,
bones
you know,
stronger.
this is kind of, it's kind of like half truth.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
just even the name stress fractures. So stress. If you're under stress, you're dumping a lot of adrenaline and cortisol and histamine, right?
Which is eating up the calcium in the bones.
Exactly. So of course your bones are going to be more brittle to cause fractures.
And the more inflammation dries out your bones, so they crack. There it is. Next
All right.
one.
Sciatica. So sciatica refers to pain that radiates along the path of the sciatic nerve, which branches from your lower back through your hips and buttocks and down each leg. Typically, sciatica affects only one side of your body.
And the other thing is that we will start from the spine and work around the spine a little bit, but that spine's not the problem.
No, it isn't. It comes down to the low back and into your SI joints for the.
It's your SI joint, and your SI joints, if you walk, you should be walking like this. You ever see anybody and they walk like a duck? They don't have a lot of action here. But everybody that I pretty well know, I'm telling you right now, if you've got a low back pain or you've got sciatica problems, and if you got low back pain and you got sciatica problems, we'll go in here to the SI joints and we'll spend maybe 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, and that's the main area, and then you always, no matter what, go to where it actually comes through the port, and that's just right under the butt cheek. You have your ischial tuberosity, and you really want to focus around that joint because that's where the sciatic nerve actually comes down through the port, and then that actually gets encased in scar tissue, and then as it comes back out, it's tearing because there's scar tissue wrapped around. That's why you're feeling that burn shooting down.
And you see it a lot with people who are working at desks all day because they're sitting, and if you think about it, they're sitting on their sit bones, which is right where that tuberosity is.
Exactly.
So it's under constant strain.
Absolutely. And remember something, that if you've got scar tissue wrapped around here and you don't have that movement anymore, that was all due to inflammation. So the reality is the inflammation that's here, that same inflammation is spreading throughout your body.
Yeah, because if that sheath can't move freely, it's just going to radiate to the coccyx, to the SI joints.
When something gets inflamed, it gets crystallized. That crystal is gooey like glue. Crystallization, okay? And what happens is that crystallization goes through there, and where the sciatic nerve comes out, okay, it gets stuck, and so it can't move. So when you go to stretch your leg, you feel this burning.
Or like I go to bend down and
okay. Do you remember? We just did that at the course. It wasn't this course. It was 2 Floridas ago. Remember?
In November?
Yeah, okay, right. And remember, we both had to work on her. Okay, so where the sciatic nerve came out, she had a knot this big. Yeah. And it was the size, bigger than a walnut, and it was calcified scar tissue, right? And we worked on it, and when we were done...
In all honesty, we worked on it 5 minutes each, 5 intense minutes each, not long though.
No. But when we were done, she could actually move it, and that burning was all gone.
Yeah.
So... the proof is in the pudding, right? And then because that big knot of scar tissue was there, that it was cutting off circulation. So when we got done, there was a bruise.
It was ridiculous because we
really
worked we worked one area this big, and her bruise was this big. Her whole lower back was completely bruised.
When we showed her, I took a picture. I showed it to her, and she was like, "Oh my god!" And then she had a flashback to her childhood memory
that her dad used to take a paddle. And he would hit her there.
Yeah, exactly where the bruise was. So it was probably actually even in the shape of it.
Yeah, and that's where father would hit her. So don't tell me that you don't have issues in your tissues. Okay? And the thing is I'm telling you, we worked on an area this big. It wasn't that big. It was this big that we worked on, the main area. And the bruise.
Her whole lower back.
Yeah, her whole lower back
this big.
We got photos of it.
Yeah.
So, sciatica.
So sciatica can be dealt with.
It can lead to a lot of other things though, especially.
And understand something. People don't bruise like this all the time. The bruising comes, the worse the disease, the more the bruising, because that was actually the pain, the suffering, and the dis-ease coming out of her. And I need you to get this.
And she did release it.
But also there's a lot of times where if you do go out there and you think that you're the healthier than the majority of the population, great. But if you do get some deep tissue and it's really not crazy deep tissue and you bruise mass amounts, that just shows how healthy your muscle tissue is and that you have really dirty blood.
It shows unhealthy it is.
Yeah, how unhealthy it is.
Yeah. But it shows how healthy it is, which is unhealthy. And the reality is that you have a blood disease. Yeah. And I wouldn't say a blood disease because for us, blood disease means you have symptomatically toxic blood. And toxic blood, when it feeds the tissue, it makes tissue go bad.
And that's why you become ripe.
That's right. So the tissue can only be as healthy as the blood. And the blood can be only as healthy as what you eat and what you don't absorb. Hopefully it's not the waste from your large intestine like we've been talking. Yeah. Okay? All right.
And what you absorb from your thoughts.
That's right. Yeah. Well, that's where it starts. Where the mind goes,
the body follows.
Yes.
All right. So next up we have scoliosis. We touched on this slightly. So scoliosis is a curvature of the spine, normal lateral curvature of the spine.
And if we can we'll just talk about it. We'll come to it. So with scoliosis, we dealt with a little girl. How old was she?
She was 17 when she came.
The little girl.
Oh, two.
Oh, two.
She was 2.
2 years old. Okay. So they wanted to build an actual plastic mold because her body was in an actual C like
Yeah,
this.
when she walked,
She was
it was completely seed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the parents came and we taught them how to do the
Deep tissue.
The deep tissue. So they came, and when they came, they had no idea about what was going on with their daughter, and they had no idea about food.
Anything about
Food-
health.
Yeah.
The
Anything
food
about
was
health.
like horrendous.
Yeah. They were feeding everything.
Yeah,
Like
everything
and everything,
wrong.
yeah.
Everything wrong. And so we started working on them, and while they were here, we were able to actually maybe about 20% ASAGE?
Yeah, 15 to 20%.
20%.
with anybody older, it would be way more, but because she
But
was
she
so
was 2
young,
years old, you can do 3 minutes, 5
Yeah.
minutes of deep
Yeah.
tissue on her. But that's why we taught the parents as she's growing once every day for 2 minutes even. You go in there lightly, and as she's growing up, you're pulling that scar tissue apart, telling the body to actually change the form
Yeah.
and go back to its original state.
Yeah.
So then we had a 16-year-old girl, and she was a champion horse jumper.
Right.
And they told her that she was going to have a 6-inch rod
Yep.
put into her spine, okay, because of her scoliosis. And we've got pictures.
They're on our website.
They're on
I
our
think.
website,
Yeah,
so
and,
you can take-
and she was only here for a week with her mom, and I taught her mom, but it was only 2 treatments I did on her spine.
So after just even 2 treatments,
I was able to kind of reverse it by like probably roughly 70 to 80%. But like in the photos, I was more so surprised than visually looking at it, because sometimes when I have a client come in, I don't completely take on their whole condition of that's exactly how it was and it went back, because we're doing it all the time. So it's like the benefits are going to come. So it's just like they see it before us, and we're like, oh, let's take some photos. We take photos, and it's like it went from this to like this within
Yeah.
just like
yeah.
2 treatments, and she was like, I feel so much better.
And guess what? When the mother called, true story, she calls me up and she goes, Dr. Wolfe, I heard about you. They're from California. And they go, I heard about you, and what can you do? And I said, well, if you come up here, we'll be able
We'll
to.
fix her.
We'll just reverse that scoliosis, and we'll teach you how to do it. And you'll reverse it, but we'll show you that we can do it. And I promise you, after the first treatment, you'll know that she does not have to have surgery, and she'll be able to keep jumping, because they said once she has that rod in, she can't jump anymore.
Yeah.
So anyways, she hung up. Basically hung up on me.
Yep.
But then she called me back and she goes, well, it sounds too good to be true. And I said, no, if you come up here, we'll do it. I promise you. You have a guarantee from me.
Yeah,
I told you
and
you're
he's
guaranteed.
always promoted, and he's always like, you have a guarantee. We have a money-back guarantee. Like where are you going to lose?
So anyways, so they came up, and you know the rest of the story.
Yeah.
Okay? All right.
So scoliosis is a curvature of the spine going how Sage was explaining when he showed his body, but we can also get a rounded back, which is more of a
Yeah.
hunchback. So it's
And you
coming
can also get an S.
this way.
You can actually be curved here
Yes.
and then
And have
curved
the
at the
S-shaped
bottom.
spine.
Yeah.
And that's called the whiplash effect, because it's been left for so long.
Yeah, so you can have different types of curvatures throughout the spine, and the Wolfe
Depending
deep
on the
tissue,
severity.
Wolfe
Deep
deep
tissue
tissue,
can correct them all.
pelvic expander, core twisting, foam rolling, and the supplements that we don't want to get into today that we can put you on. And if we can get you off an inflammatory diet, and you ask anybody with scoliosis and ask them how the curve becomes so much worse when they become intense. Okay, ask them that. All
And
right?
even if you do have a rod in your spine, you can still, it's not like we can fix it and get that rod out. No, that won't be reversed. But we can give you so much relief. Like if you have a rod in your spine and you're like, oh no, I move freely, I don't need that. Great. But if I've had some clients
nobody
where
can
they're
move
like
freely with a rod.
with
in
a
their
rod
spine.
in their spine, but I've had some clients where they're like, I have constant pain ever since I've had the surgery. And then you just work along their Rector spinae muscles in between their vertebrae, try to kind of work on top of the actual rod, just because foreign
Nice and easy.
Foreign
object,
object.
scar tissue is going to encase it, and the amount of relief that they get, it feels like they don't have a rod in their back.
Yeah, and that's with anything, plates, screws,
Yeah.
all of that
Yeah.
stuff that people put in.
Because that's the same thing like we were talking with the breast implant in that video. The
Or hip
implant,
replacement.
yeah, you're going to want that. The body's going to want to put that webbing of scar tissue all around that implant, whether it be a breast implant or a hip replacement or a knee replacement or a rod in the spine. It's going to try to encase that in scar tissue to wall off that invader so that it's not harming your body. So we can go in and we can pull all those fibers apart, so that way you're not having that lack of circulation, that lack of blood flow, that lack of lymph flow, energy
Alignment
flow.
and balanced circulation you're back.
Got your spine back.
You got your back.
All right.
Yep.
And that wraps up all of our spinal conditions for today. And we are going to be back with our next show, and we will be talking all about the TMJ,
which is the temporal
mandibular joint.
Okay? All right. So have the best day of your life, and we'll see you in the next show.
Thanks for watching.
Bye now. Welcome back, everyone, to the International Training Institute of Health Bodywork Masterclass. We're going to be teaching you today all about the spine and how, guess what? You don't have to have spinal problems. That's right. And you don't have to keep on going back for therapy constantly for spinal problems. And we're going to prove that to you. The other thing is, if you want to learn what we're going to teach you, you're not going to have to go for spinal surgery. Now, do you have to go for spinal surgery? Yes, but it's very rare. Everybody that's going for spinal surgery right now, very few actually had to go for spinal surgery, but the problem was the information wasn't out there. And we're going to show you today that now you have a choice. You have an option, and that if you want to take, personal care for yourself, take personal action, that's called self-care. And if you want to take back your health, then you're going to have to take it back from the system that told you that you can't look after your spine. And we're going to tell you that you can. And you're going to also find out the way that we look after your spine is we work on your spine. We work in between the vertebrae. We get rid of the calcification, the crystallization, and the scar tissue formation that nobody's even touching. And that is the root cause of all spinal problems, except, if you take a blow or you get a hit. And you know what? Even the wearing down of the discs, the disc problems people have, and the vertebrae problems, this is still crystallization, calcification, and scar tissue formation. And if you take a look at the rest of our videos and you read our information in our library, you'll see conclusively that this is groundbreaking. And this is a new paradigm shift at how you can look after the health of your spine.
Definitely. And it is one of the most important areas of our body to really take care of, because it is our telephone pole of information. So if we don't have a proper flow of energy coming through our spine, then we're not going to have the proper communication through our whole body. So this is so important to work from the bottom, from the coccyx all the way up to the C1. And working into the occiput, and even working the 3 eyes. So the 2 eyes here, and then the one in the middle where the brainstem meets the spine.
And understand something, everyone, that the spinal fluid carries more light than anything else in the human body, because it's carrying more information up into the brainstem and to your brain. Mm-hmm. And people do not realize that. And the other thing too is this. Do you know how when your spine goes out of place? All right, let me tell you something. Yes, get adjustments. Chiropractics is a great therapy. But understand, what truly makes the spine come out of place is that the tendons, the ligaments, and the muscles, they become like beef jerky. They become more dehydrated, which they shrink a little bit, Or the muscles on this side of the body, or the tendons on this side of the body, are fighting for power, to get more power than the other side of your spine. So what if we were to create balance? And what if we were to get rid of the scar tissue formation, the crystallization, and the calcification that's locked in the ligaments and the tendons that are causing the shortening or the inflammation that's causing the spasm to pull the joints out? I will tell you right now, you give me someone that even has scoliosis, I will not do any spinal adjustment. And I will just work on in between the vertebrae, on the vertebrae, and I will work on the scar tissue and the calcification and the crystallization, and the spine will straighten out. Because it's all about this. If I have a shoelace and I tie a knot in it, it gets shorter. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring everything back to its proper length, create elasticity so that it can bounce back, right? So it can bounce back. Not that it shortens and stays that way, and then you're out of alignment. So are you out of alignment in your spine? Or are you out of alignment in your tissues? Because the issues are in the tissues.
Definitely.
All right.
So we're going to talk about some emotional blocks that can be trapped in your spine. So these include fear of losing your freedom, fear for your own survival, fear of material loss, lack of support, emotional insecurity, expectations not being met. So you really shouldn't have expectations.
Well, yes, you should. You just shouldn't let yourself get let down.
Yeah, there you go.
Right?
You have difficulty asking for help. You feel someone is on your back constantly. You are stressing yourself out, or you are bending over backwards for people. And in the medical cause video, so we have our spine condition video, and we talk about the medical system's view on spinal conditions, and what we view. So you can find all of your information there on any of the spinal conditions, and we talk in great lengths about each one.
Yep.
So that would be where you'd want to go to see if this treatment would be best for you if you are dealing with anything with your spine. Let's get to the treatment. So we are going to start, first we're going to start actually on the Rector Spinae muscles. So we want to loosen those up first. So we're going to be going in with our windshield wiper and a shaving technique to really open up all the muscle fibers. We really want to allow that blood flow, circulation, lymph flow, energy to come through, so that way the muscles go back to their healthy state.
And the Rector Spinae muscles, they're found on the outer edges of the spinal column.
Yeah.
Just so everybody knows.
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah, they're two strips of muscles
so
that are on both
spine's
sides.
right here. We got our Rector Spinae muscle here.
Let's say about 1 inch out and 1 inch all the way, the thickness of it all the way down on either side. Okay.
Yeah, so that's our first starting point. We want to really make sure we're thorough and opening up those muscles before we really go into the spine to do our precise pinpoint work.
Yeah.
And understand something. It's not as simple as just that. We have 4 different moves that we use, and using a transverse action, because what happens is everything gets bound up really tight, and we want everything to be open. So we have the blood flow, the lymph flow, and we bring back everything to normal. And while we're in there, we're going to find different things like little knots, calcifications, crystallization, and we're going to restore that. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Especially when we're going to get into the vertebrae, we're going to find a lot of crystallization and displaced calcium around each vertebrae and with the discs, and that causes that sandpaper effect. So it can really grind on each other the worse it gets. So we really want to get in there. We want to melt the crystallization. We want to get that displaced calcium to go back into the bones, and that's why the SAC ionic calcium product is absolutely amazing. It's the only calcium product on the planet that's actually going to do what it's meant to do, and that is bring that calcium back into the bones. So with the deep tissue therapy, we're taking that calcification and we're grinding it up into like powder basically, so it can easily go back into the bones.
Yeah, we're allowing it to be accessible. And you have to understand something. It can be so small, but for every physical block that you have, okay, in between your discs, which is your pads, it's your cushion, but that cushion leaves, right? Because the more inflammation you have, the inflammation actually will dehydrate that cushion. But as you have inflammation and it becomes dehydrated, you'll get calcium in here, you'll get scar tissue in here, crystallization. So that pad becomes like beef jerky, and it no longer is spongy. So when we start working in there and we start pulling the fibers apart, we allow that fluid to come back into the pad and to return the cushion, and then to release what isn't supposed to be in there. So that is, well, listen, that's just mind-blowing for people. They'll come in with like L4, L5, L3, L4, L5. I have to go in for surgery. They say that it's bone on bone, and I have to get surgery to get it fused, or they say that they're going to have to put something in it, like a spacer, and I go, well, at least just give us a chance. So within 40 minutes, okay, the pain and the suffering, and they can feel it, the compression in there. Okay, we've gone in there to those 3 vertebrae that take up this much space, and we've opened that up, and right away they feel the difference. But then what we're going to do is we're going to work from the tailbone all the way up, like Abby was saying, all the way up to C7, right? And then depending on what we find, we may go right up into the occiput, okay?
Yeah, depending where the problems really reside. And really important to thoroughly go into the sacrum, because that is the sacred bone of energy. And when the sacrum is matted with scar tissue, 30% of your energy in that spinal fluid is not going to make its way into the brain. So super, super important to be thorough on every single part of the spine when we're doing this.
Want to let them know what else we're going to do? Or
Yeah, take her away, Sage.
Okay, so after we work the erector spinae muscles, playing all your angles and pulling that apart in a loving way, then we're going to focus on the spine. And so we want to come, when we're coming on the spine, we're coming in between each vertebrae. So it's like before when we were working on the neck, you're going to feel each mountain and then in between each groove. And you even want to kind of scan even on top of each mountain, because you can get little bits of crystallization on top of the actual joint. But then the secrets lie in between each joint. And so you're going to be pulling into it, on top of it, and away from it. And then, of course, I would do that from both sides, so I have nothing to hide.
Playing all angles.
Exactly. And we're going to work that from the sacrum all the way up to the C7. And then that's pretty much it. Flip yourself around, do the exact same thing, pulling everything back. Don't let anything hide, of course. And that would be working the spine.
Yeah, and we've seen people grow 2 inches
Yeah,
or more.
2 inches. We have a testimony of someone that we just did their spine. That was it. We well, everybody grows.
No, we didn't even measure them, though. Are you talking about London, England?
Yeah, but we did measure them.
No, because we didn't measure him. He was shorter than his wife. We finished his back, and when he stood up, he was like 1.5 inches taller than her at that point. And he
I know, but that's what I meant. We measured him
by that.
and he
that,
said, yes, now I'm 2. That's
he was
all
like,
I
oh, I'm taller than my wife now. And she was like, I didn't
this
know that was
hasn't
a
happened.
thing. Yeah.
She's like, this hasn't happened in 15 years.
Yeah, so, yeah, we measured them at the end, and they were shocked.
Yeah.
So that's the reality. So now what happened is that those discs
that became so dehydrated, those erector spinae muscles.
that could never be restored, how long did it take?
It took us about like 25 minutes.
Yeah. So, you know what?
Because it was only in that one section. A spine can take up to 1.5 hours. But we were just working his one section, and we were like, whoa, you got some masses in between your vertebrae up here. And we cleaned that out. It took us about 20, 25 minutes. And he stood up, and he went to his wife, and he was like, well, I'm taller than you.
Yeah, and your posture is just going to improve by so much. It's like the discs are getting their hydration back. Everything's going back to their healthy state. But just with that reduction in all those blockages, your posture just comes straight back
guess what?
to perfect.
You'll have a spring in your step.
Yes.
Right? And that's the truth. You won't feel like you're like walking and it's like this. Boom, boom.
Like constant
boom.
compression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So understand that, if you haven't heard this before, you're going, no, don't believe it. And that's why we give a money back guarantee on your first treatment, because people don't believe it, and we don't blame you. I wouldn't either. Okay.
Yeah, truly.
All right. So this is a whole different paradigm shift, and we're getting to the cause. We are getting to the cause, or we weren't getting to the cause, it wouldn't be so shocking.
Yeah.
So, and we're doing this all the time. All right. So when we finish with this, again, we're going to be using the Bioptron Light. We're going to be using the Avicen, and we're also going to be doing the pelvic expander. And then we're going to be giving them certain exercises that they're going to need to do at home. Hopefully they take this kit home with them. And if they don't, that's okay.
Foam rolling.
We'll be doing foam rolling. Well, we've got all kinds of things we'll be doing.
Tips and tricks.
DMSO,
essential
oils, and then going over the perfect day with them, and also teaching them that, where the mind goes,
the body follows.
Yeah, exactly.
So the 12 self-loving unconditional steps, right?
So important, especially when I listed off all those fears that everybody has with a spinal condition. We really need to reprogram those fears.
Yep. And so if you like this show and you want to learn more about the body, go into the library and take a look at the International Training Institute of Health Wellness Guide.
A to Z.
A to Z Wellness Guide. And it's all there for you. And have fun. Go look at scar tissue to a tumor.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the perfect day, page 37, what a good diet would be.
Look at Iron Woman.
Get your game on.
Yes.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Bye now.